Hello, and welcome back to Riding with Witches. Take 4? I don't know anymore.
Something like that.
We have been in giggle fits and restarting this episode like multiple times. Okay, anyway, welcome to the podcast where you get to listen to a couple witches talk about writing, specifically novels, sometimes short stories. Who knows? And yeah, that's the podcast. That's what Riding with Witches is all about. I am your co-host, Leona Urbanski, with my debut novel, Fire Magic, Book 1 of the Deathgate trilogy
It's okay.
is out now. So go find it. My co-host is...
I am Nicole Autumn. I am the author of the Secret Society series, the completed Secret Society series, that is slowly but surely making its way to republishing. And I keep finding issues. It's one thing after another, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. It's keeping me on my toes, that's for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, we have Mythweavers has been publishing books like crazy the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Fire Magic came out on the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
You re-released Unleashed.
No, so we're still
Unbound. You re-released Unbound.
Yes, we've released Unbound.
Okay.
Unleashed, the novella, and Unveiled had some editing issues that when I went through and changed some things, it decided to delete whole sentences and paragraphs through Atticus. So I'm having to go back with the original manuscript and my formatted, edited one, and making sure everything is as it should be. So, it is taking a little while, but Unleashed I have finished. It is in processing. Hopefully, it'll be done processing through Ingram soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a hot mess.
It has been a hot mess, but I am still on track for Fae Touch to come out in the fall. The rewrite is officially done. I'm probably about a third to halfway done with the first round of edits here, making comments along the way on what needs to be fleshed out some more, and there are some chapters that are really short in there. I need to fix that. There's no flavor. It's just like, here it is.
Yeah, it's like you've gotten the bare bones of the manuscript. Now you get to add the fluff, the flair, the pizzazz, if you will, to the rest of it.
And I never said what we were talking about on this episode. That's what I was trying to get to, and my brain just absolutely blanked. So, are we done with book news and we can just jump in and tell them what we're talking about?
Yeah.
All right, so we're talking about writing realistic wounds and injuries. And the first thing we're going to say, now that we're this deep into the episode, is here's your trigger warning. If you cannot handle body horror, wounds, graphic descriptions of injuries, because that will happen, because we are going to be giving examples.
Indeed.
This is not the episode for you.
Yes. Viewer and listener
Go to the next one.
Discretion advised.
Yes.
This will be graphic.
Yes, it will be. Because we have both extensively written about injuries, wounds, torture, light stuff.
Just some light torture. It's nothing. Something you can eat your eggs while listening to, in the morning. Your breakfast.
That's a double meaning now after what I just told you the story about my poor mother.
It does, but I meant from my book's perspective what we talked about.
I know. It took a second for my brain to make that connection.
Yeah. So, since we are talking about trigger warnings, yes, there is a trigger warning for this, but also, we are in the camp of, we both agree that putting trigger warnings in your books, especially when it does come to violent content, is a good bet. I know I do it. If a reader chooses not to look at it, that's up to them. But I did my due diligence as an author to put that in there. So if someone is concerned about what may be in the book, they can decide for themselves, like, yeah, maybe someone's not into torture. Maybe my book's not for you. So sorry.
Yeah, Nicole is serious enough about this. She actually did put out a bookmark that had the quote, use trigger warnings like grocery list, and then listed all the trigger warnings from the book on the back. And I think it filled the bookmark.
It did. It was literally the entire bookmark. And I actually had to make the font smaller because it wouldn't have fit on one side if I didn't. So there you go. That's how you know what you're getting into with mine. Well, at least the Secret Society series. It is a heavy trigger warning series for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is a little shorter of a list. No less graphic for that, but shorter list.
Yeah. That's true. So should we jump into types of wounds? Like the actual topic? So when you're writing, you can give your characters minor wounds. Things like paper cuts, a twisted ankle, a bumped knee, a bruise, whatever. Things that you could that could happen in any day. Oh,
I'm not the only one.
words are hard, guys. Things that can happen in everyday life. That's what I meant to say. So, things that are minor inconveniences that aren't going to be grievously wounding your characters, and they're definitely not going to the ER if they're in a setting that has emergency rooms.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, it's something that it will cause pain, but it's not going to stop you from living your life. So it could be a bruise from hitting the corner of a table. It could be slicing a chunk of your finger off when you go to put something in the trash can and slash your finger open on a Coke can. That was fun. That's still there. Uh, it could be a blister from a relighting candle hitting your shoulder. There's all kinds of things that it could be.
You're never going to let me live that down now. You're just going to make fun of me. You're like, this dumb bitch got burned by a relighting candle.
I have done worse, and I'm sure I've told you about it. I just can't think of one right now.
Yeah. Or, you get headbutted by a giant dog, because that's been happening to me recently too. We got a new dog, and
yeah,
dude does not realize how big he is, and he just throws his head around like there's nothing in there.
And it's also sports injuries. I know somebody that was playing basketball, and the basketball hit him in the face and broke their nose.
Yeah.
And that's like you have the normal like concussion injuries, which depending on the severity of the concussion is going to whether it's classify into minor or major, but there are many minor wounds you're going to be getting from sports or just travel in general, because if someone is not used to it, if they don't have the calluses, say, on their hands for riding a horse, they're going to be getting blisters on their fingers from the reins.
Yeah. If they're walking.
So if they're walking, you're
blisters.
going to get blisters on your feet, especially if you don't have good fitted shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Well-fitted shoes.
Yep.
Words are hard.
So are blisters. They hurt.
They are. They do hurt.
Painful.
So yeah, there's a whole host of ways you can have these minor wounds occur to and on your character. And depending on the character, they might not even know where they got it. Like, I have showed up with bruises on me and people are like, "Where'd you get that?" And I'm like, "Huh, that's new. I don't know."
I don't know how many times I've waken up from sleeping and I have like bruises on my legs, and I look to my husband, I'm like, "Did you just like beat me the hell up while I was sleeping?" And he's like, "No, I don't think so." But you just like wake up with random bruises sometimes. You're like, "What the frick?" I guess I slept a little too hard. I don't know. Yeah. that does happen.
So yeah, so those are some minor wounds for you to consider for your characters.
Now you're talking major wounds. These are your broken bones, your severe concussions. Um, these are also things like if they're in battle, these are like cuts or potentially even stab wounds, grazes from bullets. These are the things that, yes, can be very dangerous. You will lose blood, and you should probably see a doctor or go to an emergency room, depending on, again, the time period of your whatever you're writing on. Mine tends to be in urban fantasy, so they still have modern medicine. They can still go to a hospital, and one of my characters actually does because he got fucked up. But if you're writing a medieval fantasy, you know, these major wounds, how are you going to have them treated? And depending on the society or culture you're pulling from, that can look very different.
Yeah, and like you said, major wounds can be from battle, can be gashes, can be stab wounds, can also be um we're going to go into this in a little more detail in a minute, but it could be a broken bone from the battle. Maybe they fell off the horse. It could be burns. It could be, and burns can be pretty freaking serious. Like, I know
Oh,
I was
yeah.
making light of your blister, but
Yeah.
you get a good burn, that hurts.
It
And that's going
is.
to
Like,
really inhibit your daily life.
yeah. Um, Also, when you are writing these major wounds, it is smart to do your research, look up what these would actually look like. Maybe if you don't want to see it, that's fine, but see written descriptions. Because specifically, since you mentioned burns, the burns act very differently than, say, getting a cut. Burns at first are like bright red and they turn shiny because the skin was just like seared, essentially. Then you have to worry about blistering, and that is something that your character will deal with if they don't have magic to heal it. So, also, if you're going to wound your characters, this sounds so sadistic. If you're going to wound your characters, that is a major, you know, wound or break or whatever, you might want to look up and what that looks like and how people deal with them so you know how to deal with it for your characters.
And specifically speaking on research, and I hate to say this, but honestly, if you're talking a major wound, you're gonna have to turn off the safe search in your browser. Granted, you don't want to look at the images, skim past the images real quick.
Yeah.
That's totally fair because they're nasty. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can't handle that, you might not want to be writing it, to be honest, or you be writing it in very vague terms.
Yeah.
But you need to at least have an idea of how that wound is going to affect the character and their character's pain tolerance and that kind of thing. So yeah, unfortunately, you're gonna want to turn the safe search off.
Yeah. It's sometimes it can be really gruesome, but man, you just can't look away sometimes. You're just like, damn, that looks
Like
bad.
watching the train wreck.
Yeah. You're like, how did that even happen? Yeah.
I remember I was researching what a brand on human skin looked like. I had to turn the safe search off to find a good description of that one. That was nasty.
Yeah. And that was like hot brands, right? Not the cold
Hmm.
ones. The cold ones are so weird. I don't even understand how that even happens.
It deadens the skin cell.
It makes me wonder, are they using like liquid nitrogen to do that?
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
that
My
makes
sister
sense.
cold brands her horses. It kills the skin cells and it kills the hair, so the hair grows back. It kills the pigmentation in the hair, so the
Uh-huh.
hair will grow back white.
Oh, that's
That's why they
interesting.
do it on horses anyway, and
Interesting.
cows. I know they hot brand the cows. I'm not sure if there's a reason for that, but I have a friend that also raises horses, and unfortunately, all of her horses are gray. So cold branding them doesn't do a lot of good if she wants to be able to find them later in life. So she does have to hot brand them, which sucks.
Poor things.
But and I know people are like, that's abuse. And there is a reason for it because a horse that is branded, especially by the breeder, if they see that horse come up on auction again and that brand is registered, people can look up the brand of the breeder and find them. And that way the breeder can kind of keep track of the horses that they have sold. And so if
Okay.
the horse ends up in a bad situation, there's a chance that they could be contacted and find out and maybe be able to get them back to get help them. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
there's still a reason for it today, unfortunately, because people
Yeah.
are shitty.
Not only that, but animals, especially like livestock and horses and stuff, that those are huge investments. And there are people
Hmm.
that still steal livestock animals and horses, and you want to be able to get them back if you
Well, and
can.
she microchips them too. So I know people are gonna be like, "Well, what about microchips?" She does both,
Yeah.
but sometimes microchips do slip. They
Mm-hmm.
don't always stay where they're supposed to, and a horse is a big animal to scan for a microchip, and not everyone is
Yeah.
going to take the time to do that. So
Yeah.
anyway, tangent.
Back to it. Life-threatening wounds.
Perfect.
These are the ones that, if this was to happen to your character, there is a very, very, very slim chance that they are going to survive. These are your, you know, throat slices. These are your shots to the chest, gut stabbed, if there's guns, head wounds. These are the ones where you're like, damn, I don't even think a hospital is going to save them. So, if you decide that, you're going to have a lot of fun with how graphic you go on that or not.
Well, if they don't have guns and you're still wanting to do a head wounds, knife through the eye, very, very slim chance of someone surviving that.
Yikes. Yeah.
Yeah, right through
I don't
the
know
eye
why.
socket.
I don't know why I'm surprised by that. I've literally written that. I'm like, yikes, ow, that hurts. And I'm like, you dingus, you've written that. Why are you surprised? I don't know.
Um, and we did touch. We touched on neck wounds
Yeah.
in slicing the throat open. That applies to any artery, though. You have arteries in your thighs, you have arteries in your arms.
Yep.
Um, Putting a knife through the ribs, any kind of gut wound is going to be life threatening because, especially if it's a sharp object, it's going to split open your intestines, which is going to put you into
Sepsis.
shock, septic shock. Thank you. I
Yeah.
don't know why that word was escaping me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's a low chance of survival right there. Anything that's a low chance of survival is what we're talking about here. And it's a miracle if they survive, be it whether magic or medicine or just straight up miracle.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a divine intervention.
Yeah. They're like, you're not dying today. Um, Also, if I know we kind of went to life threatening, if you also give your characters major wounds, you will also have to worry about infections if they're open wounds. So keep that in mind because that can easily take a not so life threatening wound and still kill someone because infection and germs are real and you can 100% die from that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's usually you're in a time period that does not have some kind of infection treatment. You are 10 times more likely to die from the infection than the initial wound is my
Yeah.
if I remember my numbers correctly.
Mm-hmm. Sounds about right.
There is actual historical records of someone dying from a splinter because it got infected and it got into their blood.
Yeah. That's. Can you
Yeah.
imagine dying from a freaking splinter?
Well, and I don't think people even knew at the time. It was like after studying the records of like all the symptoms there. So it's they found it by going connecting the dots across historical records of like seeing the doctor's notes on the symptoms and then, kind of going back and seeing the splinter diagnosis. So I don't think they knew it at the time,
Yeah.
but it still happened.
That'd be
Like
crazy.
I'm not gonna be able to point you to the research that proves this because I read this decades ago, literally decades.
Yeah.
But I remember.
No, can you imagine this guy dying and he goes, "Yeah, I died from a freaking splinter that got infected." You know what I mean? There's people that are like, "Yeah, I died from saving someone and blah blah," and I died from a splinter.
Just disgruntled ghost walking around like this.
I died from a splinter. You see this? Oh man.
Anyway,
Anyways.
yeah. Infection. It's great. It's fun. Make sure you know what it looks like because it looks different depending on the infection.
Yeah. Also, then you can decide, are you doing bruising? Are you doing open wounds? Bruising can sometimes be not hit or miss, but like a bruise on your arm is just going to turn a little purple. Fine. You get a bruise on your face is going to swell up. It's going to look different. So bruising is going to bruise differently based off where it is on the body. So keep that in mind when you decide to write that.
Also, the severity of the bruise is going to change how it looks depending on the size and just how hard. Because if you didn't already know this, bruises is basically just blood pooling under the skin. So the appearance of the bruise is going to depend on basically how many blood vessels got busted open by the impact. So, you could have a bruise that's spreading all the way up and down the arm. If, say, I'll use the example, they got thrown off a horse and hit the ground really hard, versus if they just got smacked in the arm during training, could have a smaller bruise on like the forearm.
Yeah.
But the size of the bruise is also going to kind of determine the color and the phases that it goes through.
Yeah.
The worst bruises are literally black and blue. And then they slowly fade into the purple, green, yellow over time before it goes back to normal. Don't take my word for that. Go do your research. You can probably leave Safe Search on for this one.
Probably. Maybe.
But I guess it depends on how bad of a bruise we're talking.
Yeah.
So yeah, and bruises can also be funny shapes. If you hit something hard enough, your bruise can kick the shape of whatever you hit. Like if you hit something that was like horizontal on your arm, your bruise is going to follow that path.
Mm-hmm.
It's still going to spread upward, but the worst of the bruising is going to be like right there horizontal on your arm. So it's interesting sometimes what bruises will do.
Yeah.
Like modern art.
This one kind of also ties into our next point, but I'm going to say this. When it comes to internal bleeding, it often, if it's in a certain spot, can show up as bruising. And you won't be able to tell that unless you have some type of internal way of looking into the body. So your character could have a bruise, or you could write them having a bruise, and it could be like literal internal bleeding, but they wouldn't know for whatever reason. So keep that in mind also, that internal bleeding can show up as bruises depending on where the blood is pooling. So next would be open wounds, which are Leona's favorite. She has lots of slices and dices in fire magic. But when you decide to start doing open wounds, you do have to be aware of, if you're not going to be extremely over accurate, you have to still be aware of where the arteries are. You know, if you're stabbing your character through the leg, in the thigh, you got to be careful because there's a good chance you may cut that artery. Just a little bit. So keep that in mind when they do have these big cuts and stuff like that, because you believe it or not, those thigh wounds can be life-threatening if you hit those arteries. So when you're doing your open wounds, have a basic knowledge of where your arteries are, and then go nuts.
There is a book by Lindsay Sands called The Highlander's Bride, I think is the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bodice ripper. It's a romance book, but it's an arranged marriage. And when they go to consummate the marriage, the guy ends up being so drunk he knocks himself out literally on the bedpost. And I have a point, I promise. All of the woman knows about consummating the marriage is there needs to be blood on the bed sheet because of consummating the marriage. I don't remember exactly how much she knew about sex.
Old-timey
It's
shit.
been a while since I've read it. Huh?
I said that's old-timey shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But she's like, okay, I need a little blood on the bed sheet. But since she doesn't know how much blood, she slices the inside of her thigh.
Good
And
night.
it's only as we're sitting here talking about this that I'm like, oh, shit. She could have killed herself. And she does. She doesn't kill herself, but she does, like, get really faint and dizzy because she slices deeper than she should have. But it does make for an interesting conversation because there was plenty of blood on that bed sheet, and that scared the shit out of that poor guy that got knocked out. He's like, what did I do?
What? Poor guy. He must have thought he did something terrible. Oh my god.
Did, until she told him the truth. But yeah, that's
She's
the
like,
chicken neck book.
Oh my god. I need to still read that. I still need to read that.
Anyway, so it may not even be a battle scene where you need to know where their arteries are.
Yeah. I mean, literally I've in a scene with you cutting your hand or a character stepping on glass. It could be anything. And you have to figure out those wounds, and how to deal with that. Because again, infections are a thing. Especially if someone's traveling and they have open wounds, they're not showering, they're not using soap. That's not gonna be fun.
No, yeah, and especially not just arteries, but also if we're talking about the hands and the feet, there's lots of fine tendons. And I know it's a common trope to cut the hand, but if you're not careful and you cut too deep, you can cut the tendons in your hand and lose function in your hand.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. One best example I can think of for that is Mentally from Harper Hall trilogy by Anne McCaffrey that takes place in her world of Pern. Mm-hmm. Mentally is a fisherman's daughter, basically, and while she's, dressing fish, she slices her hand open on accident. And it affects the tendons. So she has trouble with her hand for the rest of the book because of how the hand heals. So
yeah,
just be aware, there's lots of little tendons in ligaments in those more fine motor control limbs that you have to be careful with.
Not to mention the nerve damage. Even if it's not the tendons, there's going to be nerve damage. I mean, I've had 3 C-sections, and let me tell you, the bottom of my stomach, I can't feel shit because the nerves are just shot. So if you go to give your character wounds that are slicing deep, even if it's not hitting artery, there's going to be nerve damage. Anytime there is a deep scar like that, they're going to lose feeling around that area. So even if it isn't tendons or ligaments, nerves are a thing. And that is your pain receptors. So if you can't feel anything, that's...
You're not going to know if you got an infection going on unless you're keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, unless you can literally see it.
Yeah.
Which we did touch on this also, was the internal bleeding. we've said sometimes it can show up as bruising, and like you pointed out, at that point you're probably dead at that point. So internal bleeding is a lot harder to write about unless you want to do it in a urban fantasy setting. I feel like if you try to do it in a medieval fantasy where their tech is like medieval Europe, good luck. They're just going to keel over and die on you. So,
magic it out.
Or, yes, when in doubt, magic it out. So there's that. If you have magic, do that, because healing internal bleeding is going to be really hard if you don't have internal imaging that we have today.
Yes. Or magic.
Or magic, yeah. One of the two.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can really say on internal bleeding.
So. Yeah, internal bleeding, it's really hard to write about. Probably not going to if you don't have to. Next would be head wounds. These could be severe or they could be something very minor. But you also have to remember there are a ton of blood vessels in your head and face, and things swell terribly, which is why when you see movies of someone getting one good punch to the eye, it swells up, and think of boxers, right? They're taking hard hits to the face, and by the time they're done, they're almost unrecognizable. And that's because the face just swells. There's blood flowing. It's a lot.
They also bleed a lot. So my favorite story about a facial wound is one of personal experience where I got smacked in the face with a tree branch right between the eyes. It made me hit the ground. I popped back up and I'm like, I'm fine. And immediately, this was like within the span of 30 seconds. Immediately, I had bled so much that the two people I was working with said, you need to go inside and clean up. And I walked in and I looked in the mirror and I just had it all the way down my face, under my eyes, across my mouth, across my nose, because that one split. Head wounds bleed a lot.
Yeah. Also with head wounds, you have to think of if they're getting hit in the head a lot or getting hit in the head really hard, you have to think of things like TBIs or CTE. These things that cause trauma to the brain that can change someone's entire personality. So, one example of this that I've seen is Selena Spooky Boo. Her husband actually had a TBI, and she has gone through
Real quick, TBI, for those of you who don't know, is traumatic brain injury. CTE is concussive trauma something.
Football players get it a lot.
When you have a lot of concussions. All right, go on.
Yes. Thank you. I completely forgot to mention that. But yes, Selena Spooky Boo, her husband had a TBI, and she talks about it in length throughout their experience from beginning to his recovery. So she would be a good resource for anecdotal evidence. There we go. I was trying to think of the word. So yeah, and there's been a lot of research on CTEs through like the NFL and stuff and how that can affect people. I mean, hell, there was a dude that was in the NFL that got plenty of CTEs and then he ended up becoming a murderer. So it can change a person. Keep that in mind if you decide to write head wounds, especially if they're getting hit in the head a lot. It's something to consider when you're writing it.
And TBIs is also a longevity thing. I have a friend that has TBI that she got 5-6 years ago. She still gets enough when you're dizzy. What is the word?
Vertigo.
Not nauseous. Vertigo, thank you. She still gets bad enough vertigo from this. She cannot bend over from the waist. And this was 5-6 years ago that she got it. So Any kind of head wound, if it affects the brain, you're going to probably have some kind of long-term effect.
Yeah.
Or they're going to die real fast because there's internal hemorrhaging.
Yes. Aneurysms and brain bleeds. Those are always fun.
Yeah.
Not fun.
No.
And then we have the classic broken bones, which my favorite example of this would have been Feyre when she broke her arm open. That's intense. So if you decide to write in broken bones, you have to consider how they're going to reset those and for them to heal. Because if not, they may lose complete function of that limb, finger. Also, depending on the time period, how are they going to deal with that?
And it's also what bone are they breaking? What bone
Mm-hmm.
are you making them break?
Yeah.
There's going to be a vast difference between a broken toe, a broken femur, and a broken rib. They're
Yeah.
all going to affect the character differently. They're all going to have different long-term effects. They're all going to be treated differently, depending on what kind of medical technology you're dealing with in your world. Um, and because, for example, broken ribs, even today, not a lot we can do about them. We do scans to make sure that they're not going to pierce a lung or have
Yeah.
already pierced the lung. And doctors basically just wrap them to try and hold them still to cause as little pain as possible. But there's still a lot of pain. Someone coughs or sneezes with broken ribs, you could tell.
Oof.
It
Yeah.
hurts.
I could imagine. And
Versus a broken femur,
yeah.
you ain't walking.
No, you're wrapped up tight in a cast. Also, healing times. Things like a broken finger are going to heal much faster than a broken femur. And, someone can still walk around with a broken finger and still do things and get things done. Whereas, like you said, if you have a broken femur, good luck. You're not doing shit. You're stuck.
Yeah. Um, Speaking on that, one thing that we forgot to put in our notes is if you're wounding your characters and you decide to go with a loss of a body part, it
Yeah.
kind of is like the broken bone. Depends on what body part they're losing, how they're losing it,
Mm-hmm.
um, how much blood they're going to lose from however they lost the body part, and how they're going to relearn how to handle their body without that body part.
Yeah.
We all know it's sick as fuck to have a character with a scar down their face, down through their eye. But if that means they lost their eyesight, that means they had to relearn how to walk because they have no depth perception anymore. So they're going to be running into stuff.
Yeah.
They have to relearn how to focus. They have to relearn about reaching for things. Again, you have no idea how important depth perception is until you don't have it no more.
Or the peripheral vision. Because
Or
at
the
that
peripheral
point,
vision.
you've lost one whole half of your peripherals.
Yeah.
Even like losing a finger or two, they have to relearn how to eat, to drink, to hold pencils, to do anything that you would opening doors, putting clothes on. Have you ever tried to put clothes on for whatever reason and you can't use your fingers? Oh my god, that'd be so hard. Like when you just painted your fingernails and you're like, oh shit, now I gotta get dressed. How am I gonna do this? You're like, eh. We've all been there, ladies. Don't judge me. So you have to keep that in mind if you are going to take a limb from your characters. If you're taking a foot, a leg, fingers, arm, anything, they are going to have to relearn, and you need to consider that in terms of your book and showing the progress of first off, their healing, and two, their relearning to function without that. And as a side note, dealing with phantom feelings in the missing limb, that is a thing.
Yeah.
It's weird. It shouldn't make sense, but it happens. People will feel things in a limb that they don't even have anymore. So all of those to keep in mind when you're dealing with missing body parts and your character. And honestly, when you see stuff like that, it relates to people that may have missing limbs and what they experience, and obviously diversity. And it's just nice to be able to see the actual effects it has on a character physically and mentally when these wounds happen, because not everyone gets wounded and just picks up and keeps on trucking. There's mental wounds that come along with it.
Yeah, and another thing to think about, if your character is wounded in such a way that it is life affecting and it is life lasting throughout their life, is what kind of accommodations are going to be made for them to be able to function. I'm not having fun, but I am having fun figuring out magical ways for a character who lost a leg on how he's going to function in a world with magic. Like, his brother is literally growing a leg out of a tree branch for him to use as a prosthetic. That's what Lachlan's doing.
Yeah.
So it's think outside of the box, especially if you're in a world with magic.
Yeah.
But also look into what is already being used in today's world and see how that could be interpreted in the world of magic. So that's a thought.
Yeah. Well, that would bring us to our witchy tip, which is emotional healing. So we've talked about wounding characters, and sometimes, like I said, that comes with emotional wounds. So sometimes that means doing shadow work to heal your emotional wounds. And as witches, a lot of the times, your deities, if you're working with them, or your spirit guides, will bring the call to you and say, hey, you need to do your shadow work. You need to work on the emotional trauma that you've been dealing with and holding on to get through it, so you can move on to be a better you.
More like beat you over the head with it multiple times.
You keep ignoring them.
I'm trying not to, dang it.
They're like it's gotten to the point that she has avoided doing shadow work, that it's now coming across my feed for her to do shadow work because they know I'll tell her. They're
I'm trying.
Excuse me, we have a message that you need to relay to someone. So yes, do your shadow work. It may not be fun. It may drag up some old hurt feelings, but you will push through and you will be better for it.
They say.
The eye roll. You're like, okay, whatever. You're like, I'd rather not. Let's just move on.
All right, rest of the episode. Let's go.
Okay. So, jumping back in.
No, I know I am paying attention, guys. I just don't want to.
And they're going to continue to beat you over the head with it.
Yes, they are. Head wounds, right?
Head wounds, yeah. Spiritual head wounds. So yes, that was our witchy tip. So we'll jump back into wounds. How to handle them. Depending, which we've talked about, I've mentioned this, depending on the time frame that you have your novel in, if you're doing like medieval style Europe fantasy, right? Your tech options are limited in terms of healing your characters if magic is not involved. Or you could be in urban fantasy where you have access to antibiotics and modern medicine and CAT scans and whatever. Or if you're, sci-fi, you get to create some crazy ass science that you can use to heal your characters, which could potentially be healing anything and everything. You never know. So again, depending on the tech that's involved and your time frame, will determine how your characters can heal themselves.
Another aspect is also what kind of, if especially in a magical fantasy world, what kind of culture are you basing this magical fantasy world in? Because, and I'm sure I've touched on this point before in the past, but if you are going to be basing it on a culture you don't know, you need to respectfully do your research, but you need to make sure that your resources are coming from within and are written by the culture, not someone who's been outside of the culture observing, looking in.
Mm-hmm.
Because white colonists, am I right? Um,
Yes.
Despite how low technology and ridiculous they were, they still somehow may try to make it out that cultures that were more advanced than them were more savage than them, which is blatantly untrue.
Yeah.
So you cannot rely on sources from outside the culture. So do your research in a respectful manner and make sure you are using appropriate resources, especially if you did not grow up in or have not been invited into that culture.
Yeah.
And if you have not been invited, it's not going to hurt to politely ask if you know someone in that culture, explain why you're asking, depending on the person, depending on the culture. There are some things they're not going to show you because it is closed, what in witchcraft we would call closed practice.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something someone else is allowed to observe or imitate or write about. So this applies to medical technology, is why I'm saying this.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were cultures that had antibiotics before they were called antibiotics.
Yeah.
And the people that came and wrote about those cultures said that they were brutish and savage, and that was blatantly untrue. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. I mean, you got a point. You know, if you look at, you could take Chinese medicine, you know, versus medieval Europe, same time frame, and the difference between their medical practices. Wow. They were killing it. Medieval Europe, archaic shit. People were dying. Which is why doctors often got the name quacks. And, you know, because half the time they were doing shit that didn't help anyways. So yeah, I agree. If you're going to look into medical practices that are specific to marginalized groups here in the US, looking out, yeah, just be respectful. And like you said, if you know someone, ask. No appropriation, that's all.
Appreciation, not appropriation.
Yes. Which also then it comes into question, like, how are your characters getting medicine? Are they doing, like I said, if you're in an urban fantasy setting, are they using antibiotics? Do they have access to those type of modern medicines? Or are they using things like tinctures and poultices or potions if there's magic? So those are all things to consider also when treating wounds and sicknesses and all of that when dealing with your characters being hurt or sick. I think I said that already. So yeah. My brain's going in circles now.
No, I mean, you summed it up.
Yeah.
So
there's that. Yeah. Consider that too.
Yep. Something to consider.
Which now we've talked about all of the wounds. We've talked about potentially treating said wounds. Now it comes time to the technical stuff of actually writing it. When you're writing, say, a battle scene or someone getting injured or something, your writing should reflect the seriousness of that action. So typically, you know, your sentence structure is a lot shorter, quicker, faster. It's boom, 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 boom. Like it's fast paced because typically wounds happen in fast-paced situations unless you're just slowly dying of a terminal illness
Or torture.
or torture. Even then, though, it may be dragged out, but it's not going to be written eloquently with beautiful prose. It's going to be nitty and gritty, and it's going to be graphic and not nice.
The one exception I will say to that is it depends on the viewpoint it's being written from and how high that person is.
How high that person is. Are they on drugs while they're torturing someone? You make a good point, because what was it? That's like, okay, so if you've seen the Boondock Saints with William Dafoe, he was a detective, and he would go into these gruesome crime scenes, and he would put on classical music, and he's like, oh yes, I'm seeing the picture painted of this crime scene, and you're like, this is nuts. Like, this man is in here like he's about ready to paint a picture, and it's like of this brutal murder happening, and you're like, oh wow, I guess that's one way to look at it. So I guess in a way, depending on the person who is doing the torturing, they may see it as beautiful art. Maybe the prose will work. I wouldn't go that route, but someone might. Someone might.
Typically, violence is going to be written in the way that you indicated, though. Short, sharp, violent.
Yeah. Also, you get to decide how graphic you write this. If you're going for accuracy, bravo. It's gonna get gross. Or if you are just like, hey, I just want to get the point across that someone got injured, you can keep it brief. You don't have to go into, the blood splatter, the brain matter flying places, and all that stuff. So it is entirely up to you, but you also have to keep in mind how you decide to write that when you go to write that.
Are you going to write it like Wednesday Addams and the Addams Family and blood spurting everywhere? Or are you going to write it? That's the only movie I can think of that I'm trying to think of another movie that just it shows the violence, but it doesn't really, like most other movies that you know it happened. But he doesn't really show it.
Old school black and white movies, when a violent crime was shown, it's a shadow of an image, or like you heard the gunshot go off, but you don't say what happens. It is assumed that someone died or someone was grievously injured. There is ways to go about it without writing it in detail. But if you're like us, we go into detail. We get real gross.
Yes, we do.
We like it.
Think about it this way: is if you're in a video game that has the option of turning the blood off. So you're either playing the video game with the blood on, like in Baldur's Gate, and you have these giant pools of blood, or you're playing in a game that you have the blood turned off. And there's a dead body, but that's it. That's all you see.
Yeah. It's the equivalent of playing like a horror game versus playing Mario. You die, but nothing really happens. It just restarts. Or it's blood, gore, guts, everything. Oh my God. So, just as an example to really paint the picture for you.
I think we got the point across.
Yeah. I did want to point out a resource that was suggested to me when I first started writing, which was Violence, a Writer's Guide by Rory A. Miller. This is a book specifically written about writing violence and wounds and all of that, specifically for writers. So if you are wanting to read about that in the perspective of having to write it, that would be a good resource for you to potentially pick up.
Sadness to that, if you're like me and you have to have the physical book, it is only available as an ebook, though, just so you know.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I looked. I looked hard because I really wanted to read it, and it's only available as an ebook. I'm like, I don't wanna.
Well, see, and that's the thing is, it was recommended to me, and then someone was like, "Oh, here," and they sent me the book. And I was like, "Oh, cool!" So
Yeah,
I didn't even have to buy it. They sent it to me. So,
that's fair.
yeah. Well, I believe that brings us to the end of writing wounds and injuries. It took a second. I was like, "What was this about again?" And that brings us to book reviews. Um, which book review were you doing to start?
Well, we can do our dual DNF review if you want.
Okay, we could do that. Um,
Oh,
you go for it.
we are part of a small book club, and we were tapped to read this book. I read it in hard copy. Nicole was listening to it, and unfortunately, it ended up in the DNF pile for both of us.
It did.
So we were going to go over that real quick. Um,
Yeah.
the book specifically is Immortal Dark by, you know how to say your name because I don't.
I did not look it up.
Uh, Tigest, Tigest, Girma, Girma. Um, yeah, I, hmm, I did not like the main character. And I know that that's the point. I know you're not supposed to like her in the beginning,
Yeah.
but I really intensely disliked this girl.
Yeah. I agree. So I got I was almost to the halfway point, I believe. Um, I think. It's been a while since I've listened to it. I also really did not like this character. I felt like, well, first off, should we even say what the book was about?
Yeah, I was going to go over that in a second. It's a vampire dark academia genre novel where the main character's sister has vanished. She believes a vampire has kidnapped her sister, so she is going into a school that the vampire is somehow associated with, which I'm still not clear on because I didn't read the book. Um, and is trying to find evidence that this vampire, one, kidnapped her sister, two, find out if her sister is still alive.
Yes.
That's as far as I got. I didn't finish the book.
Yeah. So Kidon, who is the main character, um, I just I couldn't. I really didn't like her and the whole I don't like vampires because they suck people's blood, but then on the flip side, she'll say things like, "Oh, I know I'm a terrible person. I'm bad. I am whatever," because she does do things that are objectively terrible. She literally has a bird in her hand and crushes it in her hands because she realized that the person that was going to help it was a vampire. So instead of handing over the bird, she just crushes it in her hand. And I'm like, that's awful. Um, it tells you from the very beginning that she murdered someone. Not only that, she tortured someone. Um, and it ended in their death. And she is constantly saying, "Oh, well, these vampires are terrible people because they suck blood and they kidnap people or whatever." So she has these ideals that they are so terrible, but yet eventually she's like, "Oh, I know I'm terrible." But then she starts to kind of flip the script and is like, "Well, I didn't mean to do it. I was trying to save the bird from a worse off fate." Or I didn't mean to kill that woman. It was an accident that the fire was lit, but I tortured her, but I didn't mean to kill her. So, and she's on trial. She's going to be on trial for murder at the end of it. So, I just didn't like this perspective of her saying they're bad, but she was also bad, but then didn't want to admit it sometimes, but then kind of leaned into it. It was too much for an unlikable character for me. It just
And to be clear, in as much as I've read about it, the vampires were forced to follow three rules, or they were basically eliminated, which made them mostly harmless. Like they were only allowed to drink blood with consent.
Mm-hmm.
They were not allowed to kill. I'm sure there was stuff going on behind the scenes, I'm sure. But as far as this character knew, who had never actually been around vampires and didn't personally know any vampires, she had no perspective on this. So all she was going off of was the stereotypes and what she thought they were like in her
I will
judgment.
say, okay, she was explained these rules fairly early on. Before she even goes to the academy, the head master or headmistress, whatever, of the academy tells her they're not allowed to kill anybody. They're not allowed. She essentially gives her the background of how they've been able to live amongst each other and coexist without, people dying. And she still was like, oh, well, they're still terrible. They're still awful because they're vampires. So there was this prejudice there that she really just went home on and would not let up. And I got pretty much halfway, and it literally wasn't until she found that one of the people that she was getting close to was technically slowly turning into a vampire, but was going to die if they didn't get immortality somehow, and that the main male character was trying to help her somehow. I was getting to the point where she was starting to see a different side of them, but at that point, I'm like, I really didn't care because I really didn't like her. And it was kind of sometimes she was trying to be this hard outside, like, it's giving edgelord, honestly. I'm so hard, I'm so mean. But then, like, when she's confronted with it, she's like, well, I didn't mean to. It's like, if you're going to write a character that is going to have that edge, you can't make them wishy-washy in it too. At least in my opinion. I don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, the writing wasn't bad. I
Mm-mm.
enjoyed the writing and her style. Um, the I think if I'd been able to get through the whole book, I would have enjoyed the snippets of the timelines and how she was working that angle. It was just honestly that character. Just
Yeah.
I I did not care if she lived or died
Yeah.
because of how unlikable she was.
I mean, the storyline of her trying to find her sister was interesting, but I also felt like there was just so much going on with her being in the university, her trying to figure out her house, and the backstory to her parents. And there was a lot of storylines and subplot going on that I feel like the whole overall of her trying to find her sister sometimes got a little lost in the mix.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to say yes or no to reading it. I just know it was not my cup of tea.
yeah.
So,
And it does, like you said, it wasn't badly written. The storyline itself was interesting, but Kidon in itself, I did not like her. She was driving me nuts.
mhm.
Just, no thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
So,
really wanted to like the book because reading the back of it, I was like, this sounds so interesting. And there were definitely times where it was. But then, if you have an unlikable character that you just can't
if
root
if you're
for,
writing a if you're writing a character to be unlikable, there still has to be a reason for the reader to be invested in that character's fate.
yeah.
And I think the reason she was trying to give was the sister, but like you said, she was getting really lost amongst all the subplots.
Mm-hmm.
And like I liked the little clips of going back in the sister's videos on the cell phone.
Yeah.
I enjoyed those. Like, I was rooting for her to find her sister alive because I liked her sister.
Yeah, I did too. Her sister
I
seemed
just
like so like upbeat and but also kind of sad, and like there was some complexity there even in the small spots that we did hear from her sister. That's why we wanted her to find her. But then, yeah.
when you had to spend the majority of the time with a character you didn't like.
Yeah. It kind of killed it.
I think maybe if she had, which I know it would have kind of given away if the character was actually alive or not, but like giving us little snippets of the character in present time and like not even like revealing where she was or anything, just like snippets of how she was feeling and reacting to things.
Yeah.
Again, it would have given away, but at the same time, she could have made it ambivalent on what time period it was. So maybe this was leading right up to the sister's death. If the sister did die, I don't know. I didn't finish the book. Um,
Yeah.
I think I might have been more invested in trying to finish the book.
Even if she did do that, we're in a world that has vampires. You're going to tell me there's no ghosts? We know there was because we saw them. She could have done a POV from her sister's point of view, so you don't know if she is dead or alive, but she could be a ghost. She could be alive. We don't know. But that would have been interesting. That would have, oh my God, I would have eaten it up then. Getting like a POV from her sister and not knowing, is she alive? Is she dead? That would have been a fucking twist.
Yeah, I would have
So,
enjoyed that.
yeah.
I'm kind of sad that that didn't happen now.
Right? So, yeah. It was a DNF for both of us, unfortunately. The premise was good, the writing was fine. Like there was nothing in objectively wrong with it, just that we didn't like the main character.
Yeah, and that could just be us because we have a
Yeah.
friend that really likes the book and was
Yeah.
very sad that we didn't finish it.
Yeah, she loved it. So, yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, that would bring
well, I
us.
mean, a lot of people liked it actually because I'm looking and my book actually has a sticker that says our monthly pick from Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. I mean, and that
It was just
the
us.
whole and the here's the thing. She could have wrote the main character to be unlikable on purpose. And maybe it was just too much for us, but we couldn't get past it, but clearly a lot of people liked it cuz I'm pretty sure it had a pretty good rating too on like I am not IMDb, that's the movies dingling. Goodreads. I don't know why I mix those two up all the time,
You
but
do a lot actually.
I don't know why. I mean Goodreads. So we may not like it. It could be something you may love. I also was in the trenches of reading dark academia and dark romance and stuff, and I think it was just all too much for me at that time that my brain was like, I'm a little burnt out from dark stuff. Can we get something light and fluffy? Which I am now listening to Tusk Love because of Leona. I haven't gotten to listen to it since Thursday, though. So hopefully I'll listen to it tomorrow while doing more
Yes.
laundry.
The mountain of laundry.
My mountain of laundry, because I have 5 people that live in my house.
A lot of laundry.
A lot of laundry. So that brings us to the end of this episode. You can find us at writingwithwitches.com. You can email us at writingwithwitches@gmail.com. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and YouTube as Writing with Witches. We also have a Discord server that you could join and come out and hang out with us. And yeah, that was it for that one. You can find me at my website, which is authornicoleautumn.com. I am on all the aforementioned platforms, as well as having my own Discord server. All of that will be linked down below if you would like to find it. Leona.
You are going to mainly find me on Facebook and Instagram as Leona Urbanski Author. You can also find me at my website, which is leonaurbanskiauthor.com, or sign up for my Substack at leonaurbanski.leonaurbanskiauthor.substack.com. You can find both of us and all of our books at mythweaverbooks.com. And we are on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok for Mythweavers. I am not the social media marketer.
I believe
Mythweavers.
so. I believe those are the three that we're on: Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Yeah. Or you can email us at mythweaverbooks@gmail.com. But yes, go check out the Mythweavers website. We have the books for sale, but we also have merch, which is
Yes.
awesome. And we're getting samples, and I'm like washing the mailbox every day.
You're like, is it here yet? You're like the dog that's looking out the window. Are they there yet? Are they here yet?
Just like the nose plastered to the window.
Yeah. So, thank you all for watching. Next episode will be cliffhangers and plot twists. So, thank you all for watching and or listening. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye bye.